Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I've been investing in real estate for 8 years now, or actually almost 9 years. Time's flying. So today I want to talk about how my wife and I talk about money, real estate, and early retirement. So it's kind of hitting me like this past, I would say, 4 to 5 months since I've been taking it a little bit easier now. In all aspects of my life, right? I just been taking it easier. I work my W-2 still. I've basically stopped trying to scale my real estate portfolio, and I've been really focused on simplification of what I currently have, right? So, I did drop down to, one video a week as part of the simplification process, but, hopefully, eventually I'll scale back up, to multiple times a week or even daily. I'm focusing on stabilizing my real estate and focusing on that, most likely trimming it. I know I sound like a broken record, but I've been listing my 20 unit apartment complex for about 12 months now. So a year, it's kind of interesting. Like I got some offers, creative offers, where essentially they want to, give me a higher price, but essentially they want me to sell or carry second, half the money. And for me, that doesn't work with my goal, because my goal for the 20 unit is I just want to sell it, straight sell. And I don't mind if I get a lower price, right, compared to creative financing offer. And basically take that money, pay depreciation recapture, pay long-term capital gains tax. It's going to be added to our W-2 income, which is high. And plus we live in California, and then just use that money to lump sum my primary residence so that I can remove my PMI, so that I can maybe recast my loan and drop my monthly mortgage of $5,500 down to something much less, right? Depends on how much money I sell it for, but I'm hoping I'm getting between maybe $250,000 and $300,000 that I can lump sum on my house and drop my primary mortgage from $840,000 down to maybe $540,000, right? As an example, and then recast it, remove PMI, and have that payment be a lot less, right? Also on top of that, I just talked to my realtor in San Francisco, and I didn't realize the market was this crazy, and because of the AI boom, that my house that I owned, it's probably worth closer to 1.6 to 1.7 million. And literally I asked her back in March, so 4 or 5 months ago, and she said it was worth about 1.4. But because of the craziness of the AI boom, the market saw like a 20% jump up, and it's temporary. So I'm having her validate it. There was a house about half a mile away from my house that sold for 1.7 million. It is smaller. A house. It's in a better location. It's not near the freeways, not near the loud Muni, and it's newly renovated. So like mine is decently renovated, but it was renovated probably around back when I bought it in 2019. But mine is bigger. So what I have working for me is that it's a bigger house. It has ADU potential where you can convert the garage. You can actually tear down the whole house if you want to and build a legal duplex there. It's zoned for that. But what's working against me is that obviously there's a lot of noise pollution between the Muni and between the freeway. So I just told her, tell me realistically, what is this going to sell for? And if it's, 1.6, around 1.6, then I would happily just sell it with that. So I know I've been saying that a lot, recently in my videos. But now it's kind of hitting me in the face because it's actually very close. Before it was just me brainstorming ideas, right? Because now that I kind of shifted from that growth mode over to the more chill mode, and like I said, I have multiple conversations with my wife about money, real estate, early retirement, what our life looks like. I've been consuming a lot of content from Ramit Sethi. He talks to a lot of people who just are over savers and gets them to spend more. I probably fall in that category. I've been listening to a lot of Morgan Housel, who wrote the Psychology of Money and the Art of Spending Money. And basically, his framework is, how do you minimize future regret? Because, then I've experienced this firsthand. You buy like we bought our current house, which is a 3-bedroom, I think 2.5 bath. And then immediately, the moment we first got the house, we used to live in a small 450 square foot studio. And now we have a 1,700 square foot condo. And within 2 years of us living here, my wife and I were asking, should we have gotten the 4-bedroom house in the same community? It would have costed probably $200,000, $300,000 more, but now we're regretting it, Like, oh, so you always want to trade up. And I try to catch myself and say, you know what? Honestly, if we got the 4-bedroom, we'd be asking ourselves, should we have gotten the 5-bedroom? Right? So you kind of always want more. And that's just a human nature, I think, with human psychology. So I have to keep on like pushing back and saying, you know what? We have enough, right? I'm content with this house. Obviously it's just me and my wife right now. Like we have 2 rooms we don't even use, a bathroom we don't even use, and we're at work most of the day, right? So, and even if there's a family of 4, yeah, it might feel a little bit tight, but each person will get their own room. Even if there's a family of 5, maybe 2 kids will have to share a room. But like, it just will be a temporary, feel crowded. Like when their kids are small, they don't take up that much space. And then, obviously when they're like teenagers and older, then maybe they want their own room, but that's not always the case. So, I always have to like wheel back, and the way I phrase it is, well, because we got a $900,000 3-bedroom house, believe it or not, instead of a $1.2 million 4-bedroom house, that's $300,000 of less money and less debt that we have to take on that helps us buy our freedom and buys our independence, right? So that, like, for me to make $300,000 would be working like probably like 2 years and have a high savings rate. So basically by not getting a bigger house, it gave us the optionality to early retire 2 years sooner. So if I phrase it that way, I don't like feel as bad, right? So, same thing for my my Tesla Model Y that I got. Like I know, like, yes, there's nicer cars, more popular cars out there, but I know nothing's gonna improve my quality of life that much more compared to my Tesla Model Y. Like having full self-driving for $100 a month with tax has single-handedly improved my quality of life the most, because I'm sitting in traffic like for an hour, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And, we like to drive places to do activities, and because I have self-driving, I'm more inclined. I can't say, oh, I'm too lazy to drive, because I'm not really driving, my car is. So I would say that $100 a month has significantly improved my quality of life, which is why I continue to subscribe for it. But obviously, if I go on vacation, I'll just stop it temporarily. So with all that being said, sorry for the long ramble, but I keep things real. I don't script anything, as you guys know. So what did my wife and I talk about money, real estate, and early retirement? So I think for money, my wife and I, like, we are overall pretty frugal. I think overall we know how to spend our money in a way that gives us the most value, right? So like right now we value frugality because we need to save money towards paying off our primary residence, which is one of our huge goals for early retirement. And I do see that it's possible for us to pay off our primary residence in probably the next 5 years. And that's, hingent on, I'm probably going to sell my San Francisco property if it's truly worth 1.6 from the AI boom. I think it's a good time to sell. And, honestly, it's an older property. It's over 100 years old. It's a little bit further from my dad, so it's harder for him to manage. And, San Francisco goes in cycles, right? There's a lot of homeless there too, unfortunately. But, San Francisco goes in cycles. So I just don't see myself holding it long term. So that's why, because it's old, because it's cyclical, it just makes sense for me to sell, right? When it was worth 1.4, I wasn't thinking about it, but now that I'm hearing, closer to 1.6, my ears are open, right? And if I were to sell it after the taxes, after depreciation recapture, I bought it for 1.1, I still have about 840 as a loan. I'd probably have roughly about 450 in my pocket at the end of the day, right? So that'll give me a nice 450K lump sum, right? So that could be a nice lump sum to pay off my house. I'm hoping to get my mobile home park note back. So I did a seller carry second position, which is due in about a year. So July of 2027. Once again, it's another 450 sum. And if I sell my 20 unit, it's roughly going to be about maybe $200,000 to $300,000 of money, depending on what I sell it for. So between all that, that's enough to pay off my primary residence, right? And, for me, my goal was to always sell my San Francisco property and my 20 unit, if you follow my videos, because I have another one in the Bay Area. I like that property. I still think it has more potential to grow, and I can see myself living there. Like, honestly, if I want to move back to the Bay Area. And also I have one in Orange County, which, once again, that's the one I'm about to ADU on eventually. But once again, I can see myself living in that house too, or the ADU in the backyard. Just because it's great school districts, and it's nice to be able to live in Orange County, and it's a 1-story house instead of my tri-level condo. So, eventually if I'm older or whatnot and I don't want to climb stairs anymore, then it's an option, right? So I the way I'm phrasing my rentals now is like, could I actually see myself living in it? And if so, it's worth keeping it. And if it's in good location, but if it doesn't fit that criteria, then I'm okay offloading it. So my San Francisco one, I can't imagine myself wanting to live in that one. And if I did want to live in San Francisco, I'd rather just rent temporarily, to be honest, and be in the heart of San Francisco. But so that's why, to me, it makes sense to sell. And then obviously my 20 unit is not performing as well as my 26 unit. So right now, stronger property management for my 26 unit, better, more units, better tenant base, more longevity. So it makes sense for me to keep that one as well. So, if I sell both of those two, it's going to wipe off, about $840K debt from selling my San Francisco house, about $400,000 in debt from selling my 20 unit, and I'm gonna wipe off about $800,000 in debt on my current house. So that's $2 million of debt just off the table, right? So, so that will heavily de-risk my portfolio. That will reduce my living expense, and then that would make my wife and I more comfortable to transition to, maybe becoming part-time. Maybe my wife retires first and then I still work, right? So it just opens that door the moment we simplify our portfolio, and then also pay off our primary residence so that we are only paying property tax, insurance, HOA, which we can, afford, right? I think that's going to be about $2,000 a month all in, including utilities. We can afford that. So, that's a big lever that we're going to pull. And like I said, patient with a 20 unit. Hopefully next year I get my mobile park note, second position. And then obviously San Francisco, if it's truly as hot as it is, I imagine if I truly list it, maybe within 3 months, everything will be done and settled, right? So, that one's probably going to happen the fastest. My 20 unit, it really depends on the buyer. And it's not a good time to sell multifamily anyways, or apartments anyways, but who knows? If someone's interested, by all means, why not try? And then, another part of this too is that my wife and I, because our net worth is so heavily indexed towards real estate, I'm starting to diversify, right? So I'm taking chips off the table, obviously, paying off my primary. And then right now we're aggressively investing in index funds. So my wife is doing Vanguard, and then I am, it's more controversial, but I'm optimizing my whole life insurance policies that I max fund, right? I know a lot of people hate on index universal life, variable universal life. I do have 2 policies, but I'm pivoting how my policies are, and I'll just share you what I learned in case you're going down this route. But honestly, you shouldn't be thinking about max funded whole life insurance, in my opinion, until you've maxed out your 401k, you maxed out your IRA, you maxed out your HSA, you have some rental real estate, maybe you have your primary residence, and at that point, consider max funding a whole life insurance. But just know, if you do it, you have to commit to max funding it for about 7 years. So I'll share my policies. So I have a VUL, variable universal life, through Nationwide, which is $2 million. And basically this one, it rides the market. So within the variable universal life, it basically 50% is in QQQ, which is the top 100, and 50% is SP 500, right? So just 2 index funds that I dollar cost average every single month. So I've probably have around $200,000 in cash value. So remember, every month you make a payment to the life insurance company. They're going to take their fees. They're going to take their cost of insurance fee. They're going to take the management fee. So that's the negative about variable universal life and index is they just have more fees. It's probably about 1% to 1.5% on average compared to Vanguard, which is 0.03%. So and then I have something called a raising death benefit. So as I put more money in the account, the death benefit started off at $2 million, but because I put more money in, the death benefit is now $2.2 million. So this is a way to put the most amount of money, because the higher the death benefit, the more money you can put in there. So what I'm doing now, because I'm basically probably just want to max fund it for another year or 2, and at that point stop it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something called level death benefit. So the death benefit just stays level. It stops growing. And then what happens is if the death benefit stays at 2.2 million and the cash value, let's just say, goes up to $400,000, you have to pay about $1.8 million in insurance to make up that gap. And so because of that, your fee should go down over time. So that's what I plan on doing. But then on top of that, once you own the policy, specifically for Nationwide VUL, once you own it for 10 years, you can start dropping your death benefit either by percentage or by a certain amount based on, there's like a law or guidelines for that. But I just say hypothetically, let's just say I'm at 2.2 million, and then let's say in a year I drop it down to 1.8 million. Then another year I drop it down to 1.5 million. Because as I drop my death benefit, then my cost of insurance goes down, and then the cash, it's more optimized towards cash value, but then I cannot put as much money in there. But I don't plan on doing that anymore. I think I put enough money in there, maybe go for another year or two. But I'm definitely gonna level out the policy and then start dropping the death benefit with that. So probably ideally, because like I said earlier, I'm wiping off about $2 million in debt. So because of that, I don't need as much life insurance. Before I had life insurance to cover my debt and my obligations. But as my life insurance or as my debt goes down, my risk goes down, then I can lower my whole life policies, right? And then worst case, if I need more life insurance, I just can get term, right? It's cheaper and you can cancel it. And I have term as well, right? I have $1 million term policy. So, I'm covered on all aspects there. So that's one thing I'm doing in my VUL. My IUL, once again, I probably have about 150K in there about of cash value. So this one, it has more fees in the VUL, but it has something called so you invest in index funds, right? Like S&P 500, global index funds. And what it does is there's a ceiling and a floor. So if the market goes up by 30%, it might cap you at 13%, right? But if the market crashes 30%, it'll cap you at 0. So basically, this is the more stable account that you draw from if the market were to crash 50%, right? So I kind of view it as like a bond almost. It's more conservative, but there's more fees associated with it. And the IUL has long-term care benefits. So in case you end up in a nursing home or in a hospice, you can withdraw from it early to cover yourself, right? And that's what happened to my mom, unfortunately. So it's just a way to do it. And once again, I'm probably going to level it out, and I'm probably going to drop the death benefit on this one. So this one, what's nice is I can drop it 20% every single year without being charged a surrender fee. So if you cancel your policy, you get charged a surrender fee, which is like usually $20,000, $30,000 depending on your death benefit and depending on your policy. So, for me, I'm probably going to level it out and then drop the death benefit from 1.5 down to probably 1.2. Then eventually I'm going to drop it down to 1 million. Basically I'm done max funding it, and I'll just continue I can basically stop funding these policies and just let compounding do its thing, let time do its thing, right? And, this is a way to get tax-free wealth, right? So once again, full disclosure, in my opinion, I think you only need whole life insurance if you have a high net worth, if you finish maxing out your 401k, your HSA, your IRA, you've owned your primary, you own a few rentals, and at that point, if you need something else to invest in, consider life insurance, right? So in my mind, I think it's for the people who are higher net worth, but they try to sell it to you if you're just starting off. So in my opinion, in the beginning, I completely agree. Buy term, invest the difference. But once you're older, you can consider, whole life insurance policies, but you have to be willing to max fund it for 7 to 10 years. And at that point, either start dropping down the death benefit so that it'll focus more on cash value, right? So that's what I am kind of doing and focusing on with that. So I'm simplifying that. So ideal state, I probably will have about a 1 million IUL. So from 1.5 down to 1 million, it'll probably take me 2 years to do that as I drop it by 20% every year. And then my VUL, which is 2 million, I'm probably going to drop that down to like $1 to $1.5 million as well. So roughly I'll have a 1 million IUL or 1 million VUL and then 1 million term for $3 million worth of insurance. And I'll have about $3 million in debt, right? So it's a good balance. So in case something happens to me, my wife will have enough money to wipe off all my real estate debt, right? So that's the whole point of life insurance, in my opinion, is just to cover that. But like you said, you can call me dumb and just say, just get a $3 million term policy. My $1 million term policy is about $70 a month. So you get 3 million, maybe it's like $200 a month, and then you can call it a day, right? So that's just how I'm doing it, but you could do it either way that you please, right? So basically, that was a huge conversation with my wife. My wife hates my whole life insurance. She keeps on telling me to cancel one and, just pay the surrender charge and then dump it into the other policy and then be done with it, right? That's what she tells me. So, I think my wife and I were pretty aligned on like money. So obviously we want to simplify it. We want to diversify out of real estate, more into index funds. We want to pay off our primary residence. So, ideally I'm going to have like roughly 30 units. And we've paid off primary and hopefully a more simplified portfolio, right? And then in terms of like early retirement, like we ask a lot, like what would you do on a normal Wednesday afternoon if you didn't have to work? And I asked myself this, asked my wife this, like honestly for me, it'd probably be like waking up, basically going to the gym or something in the morning. Like I'd run to my gym, work out there. I have a gym in my community, so I don't even need to pay for a gym membership, or I could go to like 24-hour fitness or Equinox, whatever, $300 a month. And then I would like just work out, I would run, and then I'd probably walk around the area afterwards, maybe go for a swim in my pool if it's like hot, like summertime right now. And then after that, I would probably like just want to explore a new area, eat a restaurant, and then like that's really it, right? Go back home, watch some TV, watch some sports, run some errands around the house. Like honestly, that's a very realistic like day in our life. And then like if we're like here home, or like maybe hang out with friends, maybe I can split my time between SoCal and NorCal where my parents are, or up north, and then I can do more hikes and stuff up north. Because there's a lot more hiking there with like redwoods and whatnot. So, I just could do that. If I were to travel, if I travel within the States, I probably would do like a nice road trip, right? I would love to get an RV and just like drive around the US and like go to national parks, or just drive my car around, go on like slow travel, whether in the US or like if I were to go to Asia, like realistically, like I'd probably go to like China, Japan, Vietnam are my top three. And yeah, just slow travel there, right? I might stay there for like 2 or 3 months, and it's cheaper there. The food's great there, but doing activities there is really cheap. So like like if we were to travel, that's how it would be. And we don't need the nicest hotel always. I mean, obviously, if it makes sense, we can get a nicer one. But most of the time, we're just kind of out and about. We just need a nice, comfortable place to stay in a great location that we can walk around. So we're very aligned on that. And like you don't need as much money as you think. Like when I got started in real estate, like I was arbitrarily just chasing 100 units and then 20K a month in positive cash flow. And I didn't even think why. I just was a number I threw out and did that. And why I share that is because a lot of people think that way, where they just arbitrarily get a number and focus on it. And they don't even think about why. Because if I actually think about it, like yes, 20K a month is probably what I need, assuming I have a mortgage. But if it's owned free and clear, do I need 20K a month? Probably not. But for me, when I retire early, I want to live a good life. And then I have to factor in health insurance, and then eventually family will be in the picture one day, and you get the factor for that as well. So but like it's just crazy to me, like my wife and I, like we didn't even know that where we live they have like concerts in the park every Wednesday at like 6 p.m. and like it's free. So like what we do is like after dinner we'll just go there, we'll check out the music, and it's in the park, and then we will play like tennis or pickleball, or run around the park. We'll just walk around. It's just a nice place to get out, and you get free music. And this is completely free, right? So, and we enjoyed it. Like, honestly, it was a fun event. It was a Taylor Swift cover band. It's like, it felt like pretty good. Like, there was a pretty good band. And I was completely free. And they have one this upcoming Wednesday. So there's a lot of things you can do for free that don't require much money at all. So that's why, like, once I kind of realized that, I'm like, that 20K a month that I arbitrarily threw out, like, 8 years ago, like it's totally within my grasp if I sell some rentals and pay off other rentals, right? So, I just described some of my 20 at my San Francisco, but if I were to sell another one, I could pay off another rental, and then that would increase my cash flow and de-risk my portfolio, and one less tenant to deal with, one less excuse to deal with, one less headache to deal with, right? So, I think my wife and I are really aligned on all three aspects. So, to kind of summarize, we are aligned on money. So I think we definitely want ideally 50% in stocks, 50% in real estate. In terms of real estate, I think it's become clear that we want our primary to be paid off and probably offset some rentals. At least 2 to start, my 20 unit, my San Francisco to start, and then we could see how we go afterwards. And then, obviously, eventually we're going to build an ADU in our Orange County property, but like no rush on that, right? If I sell another asset, I can use that to pay for the ADU, or I can get a line of credit on my ADU and then just aggressively like pay it off, right? So I think we're aligned on that. In terms of early retirement, I think we agreed that like my wife would probably retire first or go part-time first. And then for me, I'd probably go part-time second and retire second. But I think we're very aligned in terms of like our day-to-day lifestyle, how we want to spend our money, and how we want to live our day-to-day life. Like I think we live very simply, and we find a lot of joy and fulfillment doing things. And like you said, we do a lot of events. Like we have a lot of things lined up. I think we're going to like a comedy show. We're going to check out NFL game. We're going to check out a soccer game, and it's like pretty expensive. Like most of it's like under $100. Sometimes like, your work, they give you discount tickets for like $20. It's like, why not go and check it out? So, I think we're very, very aligned on that. And, that brings us like the most joy in terms of living that way. And, like I said, I told my wife too, like, honestly, at our net worth of like, I think we're like $7-8 million, like me buying another rental property isn't going to really improve my quality of life. I said this before, but me paying off my primary is going to improve my quality of life because it takes the stress and burden off of your shoulders in case I lose my job. If I lost my job and I still have a mortgage, I'd rush to find another job. If I lost my job and then I had no mortgage, well, I'm not going to be as rushed to buy it. So you can hear the trash cans. It's trash day here. So, that's really, the name of the game. And we're really like that. And in terms of real estate, like I kind of hit the point where like I have enough units. Like at this point, like real estate is becoming more of a nuisance to me than it's helping me, which is why I want to sell some. But then now it's just like, I used to not be annoyed if the tenant was like late or give me excuses. Now, like every time I get an excuse as to late rent, I'm just like, oh God, this again. So like to me, I'm like, you just have to know how much brain damage you're willing to put up for real estate, get to that point, and at that point you stop and then you simplify, right? But I have a lot of real estate friends who own more units than me. Like they own like 70 doors in California, and they still want more. So basically in my mind, I'm like, well, they haven't hit their enough point, and they haven't hit the point where it's brain damage for them. But for me, I hit my point, which is about 50 doors. That's enough brain damage for Steven. So ideally, I want to be in the low 30s once I sell 2, and I want to pay it off primary. So that's enough for me. Like I really cannot imagine myself buying real estate in like the next 5 years, to be honest. And then in terms of early retirement, I think my wife and I aligned. So people obsess over the 4% rule. So my retirement, I think in my last video that I had, was I want $20K a month with a paid off primary residence and $10K a month coming from my 4% rule of my index fund portfolio. So that's roughly going to be about $3 million index fund portfolio, which I'll get there in 5 years. And then other $10K a month is coming from my rental portfolio, right? Assuming I sold 2. So I think that's very obtainable, given my current position, and that's what I really want to do. But like, what people forget is the 4% rule is assuming you never touch your nest egg. But like, honestly, like I talked to my wife about, like, in terms of legacy, I used to be so big on legacy when I was like getting started in real estate, and I was using it as motivation. But like, dude, I'm like, my kids are going to get more than what I am getting from my parents, right? And also I'm inheriting, probably my wife and I will both inherit a property from our respective parents and a little bit of money as well. So like, to me, I'm like, I don't mind if I have to go to 5%, 6% withdrawal rate and dwindle my nest egg. I don't mind, right? Because I know my kids at minimum are going to get a, paid off house and some money and maybe some life insurance. So like, that's good enough, right? I don't need generational wealth, right? I just need like enough for my kids, and then they will get more than me. But for me, I want to live my life, right? So I don't need to like, I need to only do 4% because I want to pass off money. I'm like, it's fine if I withdraw 5-6%. Who cares? Like if I start off at a $8 million net worth, and because I'm drawing 5-6% instead of 4%, maybe by the time I pass, maybe my net worth dwindles down to 5 million or 4 million. So what, right? That's still more money than what I got, right? So and that's good enough, right? If you have 2 kids and 2 million per kid, right? That's plenty. So I'm not as big on like legacy that way anymore. I'm like, they'll have enough, right, to do what they want. Like if you have $2 million inheritance plus a paid off house, like what else do you need at that point in my mind? So that's why I'm just like, why keep on grinding and why keep on working if like I already hit the goals that I set myself out for, right? So this is, like I said, if you watched my video 6 months ago, completely different mindset. I was like still focused on buying, scaling, leverage. I was doing my new construction burrs at the time, and now I'm completely reverse. I'm like, I have enough real estate. I just want to like take it easier and enjoy life and enjoy the fruits of my labor. And that's why I did real estate, right? I did real estate to buy myself freedom, to buy myself independence, but I became trapped to my real estate, right? And that's the reality of real estate. So now I am selling some real estate and using the money. Yes, you're paying a lot of taxes. Yes, you're paying a lot of big, but you're using that to make your quality of life better, right? So if I can reduce my mortgage, my quality of life will be better, right? And then I'll be less risk and less debt, right? Because yeah, for me, I think $5 million of debt was the max I did, and I can't do any more than that, right? Like, everyone has their own limits. So mine is probably 5 million. So, and I know that, like, if I want to, let's say I hit all my goals, I know when I'm ready to buy my real estate, I already have the skill set and the mindset to do it if I want to do it. But that's the big if, right? Like, maybe I'll just be like, you know what, it's not worth it. Just do index funds and call it a day. So yeah, that's kind of the conversation I had with my wife and I about money, real estate, and early retirement. So hopefully you can take some nuggets from it. But it's just really crazy to me that, like, it's very, very feasible that within 5 years, so for me that's 41, my wife will be like 36, that we could be retired essentially in fat fire, or I call it chubby fire, because we're in a high cost of living area of Los Angeles, with a paid off primary, and then we can live like a pretty good life, right? And we can still be able to travel, and your dollar goes a lot further overseas. And like you said, you don't need as much money as you think, right? So I really, if you look at the key message, it's slowing down on real estate, taking shares off the table, diversifying 50% index funds, 50% stocks, and then basically realizing that I don't spend as much as I need, and I'm not as focused on legacies. Like, I have enough to pass off to my kids already, so I might as well live for today. I'm only 36 once, and find ways to make it easier for me, right? Because that's the whole point of me doing this real estate. So fingers crossed, hopefully the AI boom continues and I can sell my San Francisco property at a good price. So wish me luck. So anyways, hopefully you found value from this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you like this type of content and you want to network with myself and other people, check out my school community, link down below. Otherwise, hope to see you next one, and thank you so much.